Superfund sites are areas deemed to be too toxic to inhabit due to a number of different reasons, but most commonly from the past operations that were designed to gather the resources from the land or water in that area. Many of you have never heard of a Superfund site. Maybe that's because it's a scary topic that most people overlook, or maybe it's just kept a little more quiet than you would expect. Studying history and exploring abandoned locations forced me to come across one of these locations. When I looked further into it, I had no idea how many toxic sites there actually are. Pennsylvania is in third place next to New Jersey and California to having the most Superfund sites in the country. Now I'm determined to cover as many of these sites as possible and bring awareness to what could be in your backyard. This is Superfund Sightseeing. Growing up, I spent a lot of time in the woods. And given the way Altoona is laid out, no matter where you're at in the city, the woods are only minutes away. I'm interested in this site because I'm very familiar with it, and I've been near the site many times when I was a kid without even knowing it was a Superfund cleanup site. I didn't even know what that was anyway, but after digging into this subject a few years ago, I was disturbed to see how much damage has been done on this planet, not just in Pennsylvania or the United States, but everywhere in such a short amount of time, over the past 100 years. So don't worry, this isn't a political video or some global warming lecture, but it may catch a few people's attention as to what carelessness has gone on with devastating consequences. I bet you didn't know that in Pennsylvania alone we have 127 Superfund cleanup sites, and I hope to cover as many of them as possible. So let's get on with it. 60 of the most contaminated sites in Pennsylvania are vulnerable to the impacts of climate change, according to a new report from a government watchdog agency. The Government Accountability Office, actually GAO, an independent agency that works for the U.S. Congress, assessed how impacts of climate change, including flooding, storm surge, wildfires, and sea level rise, might impact some of the most dangerous hazardous waste sites around the country. The agency looked at 1,336 active sites on U.S. Environmental Protection Agency's national priority list and 421 deleted sites where EPA had determined no further cleanup was needed. Nationwide, about 60% of those sites are located in places that might be impacted by the effects of climate change. The report found GAO looked only at non-federal sites, which means the agency excluded the roughly 10% of Superfund sites owned or operated by federal government. In Pennsylvania, 60 of the 119 active and deleted sites surveyed and analyzed by GAO are in areas deemed vulnerable to sea level rise, storm surge, or flooding. GAO warned in its reports that impacts of climate change could pose risks to public health by spreading pollution from such sites. The agency pointed to the aftermath of Hurricane Harvey in 2017, when an unprecedented amount of rainfall dumped on Houston, damaging Superfund sites and releasing toxic materials. According to GAO, EPA's strategic plan from 2018 to 2022 does not include goals and objectives related to climate change or discuss strategies for addressing the impacts of climate change effects. EPA officials interviewed by GAO said that the agency doesn't always include climate change when it's assessing risk at Superfund sites. Under the Trump administration, the EPA has rolled back many of the Obama administration's policies to address climate change by curbing greenhouse gas emissions. The Trump EPA told GAO it believes the Superfund program adequately considers the risk of severe weather events. So today we're going to get into a Superfund site located in Altoona, Pennsylvania, that was a former landfill and has now since been cleaned up for the most part, but it's still being monitored. But let's get into the history of this landfill first. All this information is directly from the EPA itself and can be accessed online. Delta Quarries and Disposal Incorporated / Stotler Landfill, Annis / Logan Township, PA. The 57-acre Delta Quarries and Disposal Incorporated / Stotler Landfill site, located in Blair County, PA, is an inactive municipal landfill that operated from 1964 to 1985. Originally, the site consisted of two separate landfills that were combined with the Delta Altoona Sanitary Landfill to form one large facility. Approximately 2,500 people live within 3 miles of the site. The closest resident is about 35 feet from the site, and there are private wells in the vicinity. The aquifer under the site is used as a source of drinking water by local municipalities. About 1,500 people obtain drinking water from wells within 3 miles. Groundwater flows in the direction of the Little Juniata River, which is 1 mile from the site and is used for recreational activities. The site was proposed to the list on June 10, 1986, and formally added to the list March 31st of 1989. So what is being done to clean up the site? The site is being addressed through federal, state, and potentially responsible parties' actions. In 1984, the potentially responsible parties and the state entered into a consent order and agreement to close the site. In 1987, the parties covered the landfill with soil to limit further spread of contaminants. The same year, EPA and PRPs executed an additional consent order requiring a study to define the nature and extent of contamination and to identify remedial alternatives for cleanup. The study, known as a remedial investigation, was completed in 1991. Based on the results of the remedial investigation, EPA issued a record of decision in March of 1991. The remedies selected consisted of pumping and treating groundwater to address contamination, establishing deed and access restrictions, performing cap maintenance, installing a gas venting system, and conducting long-term monitoring. The design was conducted by the responsible parties under a May 1992 consent decree. The entire site was fenced in 1992. At the end of the remedial design process in 1995, the PRPs proposed to modify the selected remedy as follows. Instead of pumping and treating groundwater at the site, the responsible parties proposed to extract groundwater at the site and pump it to a nearby wastewater treatment plant for treatment. EPA agreed to this proposal and issued an Explanation of Significant Differences, ESD, in December of 1995. The ESD allowed the responsible parties to implement a more reliable and less expensive treatment alternative. Construction of the extraction system started in June of 1996, and by December the system was operational. This achievement marked the completion of construction. In October 1998, after the extraction system was fine-tuned to ensure the extraction wells were preventing contaminated groundwater from leaving the site, EPA acknowledged that the PRPs had completed the remedial action phase of the cleanup and entered into the operation and maintenance phase. The PRPs continue to work at the site. During the fall of 1999, they upgraded electrical instrumentation and installed additional chain link fencing. In March 2001, EPA and state changed sampling requirements. So what's going on the site currently? Groundwater treatment and monitoring are ongoing. EPA has conducted several 5-year reviews of the site's remedy. These reviews ensure that the remedies put in place protect public health and the environment and function as intended by the site decision documents. The most recent review concluded that the response actions at the site are in accordance with the remedy. However, EPA has deferred making a protectiveness statement for the site until additional information is available about the level of contaminants in the site's wetlands. EPA will make a protectiveness statement following the collection and analysis of this information. So now that you know about the site, let's go see what it looks like right now. So as you can see, this never-ending fence that surrounds the landfill just goes on and on, but up here a little further is the entrance. Now, there's not really much to see here, obviously. It's just a big open field. And I know what you're thinking. Send the bird up and give us an aerial view. But I wasn't taking my chances. The way my drone's been acting lately, I don't trust it. And I don't want to lose it over this fence because I don't feel like climbing it. Let's take a ride down the road and check out the water treatment plant. All right, so I guess I should point out that this place actually has a success story. Not quite yet, but it looks like a New York-based company who has solar fields in other parts of the area in New Jersey, and I believe another one in State College, PA. They're looking to put a solar field in that area. I mean, it's 52 or 54 acres, so I mean, why not? I mean, you can't build houses on it, you can't, use the land for anything, it's too toxic, so why not put a solar field on there? And I have to, I don't really like to give my opinion on this channel, but I think it's a good idea because you literally can't use it for anything else, and it's just a waste of space. And then they'll have to just tear down 150 acres somewhere else of good forest to do it, so why not just use this space? And the area is perfect as far as sun goes. There's not too many objects, it's not a heavily wooded area, it's a wide open space, so that is the plan, but they have to deal with a lot of rezoning issues, and God knows what all goes into that. I mean, I don't, so we'll see.
Check it out, man. I mean, this merch is like really sick. Check me out, bro.